Another day, another AAA video game comes out, and I have to be the loudest contrarian in the room about it. Look, it's not like I'm doing this on purpose. I just think that the last run of games I've played haven't really hit the beats they needed to for me. And it's honestly quite a shame that this is the latest game to be the receiver of my ire. I'm huge in the Doom reboot franchise. Doom 2016 was one of my personal Game of the Year favorites for that year, and while I may not entirely agree with some of the design decisions found in Doom Eternal, it's easily home to some of the most peak moments found throughout the entirety of the franchise. So when I heard id refer to the Dark Ages as taking the fighter jet inspired gameplay of Doom Eternal and bringing it to the slow crawl of driving a tank, I already kind of felt a disturbance in the force, and it looks like I was right to feel that way. Look, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Very rarely do I play games anymore that just straight up suck. Instead, I try to look at games as being not for me more than anything. It's also a great way to stave off any real criticism I might receive from my opinions, but that's neither here nor there. Even with that being said, I can't help but find myself feeling nothing when I play this. I've given it solid 2 attempts now on 2 separate game files, each on the Nightmare difficulty with customized difficulty variables, and throughout each of the playthroughs I have walked away feeling empty. This game lacks a fundamental sauce that is so pervasive within its predecessors, and it's so apparent that I can't even bring myself to see the journey through to the end. I normally don't like to put reviews to something I've only put just a tiny bit of effort into seeing through, so instead I'll just label this as an impressions video and move on. Mainly because I just don't see myself ever coming back to this ever again. Everything about this game feels like a huge regression for the reboot franchise. From the gameplay to the music, the aesthetic, even the goddamn story is infinitely worse off. By every measure, the product just fails to meet the insane standards set by its previous entries and serves up an experience that ultimately falls flat on its face. For me. Look, I just know that there are some people who are going to vibe with this, I do. But in my eyes, through the few hours of time dedicated to it, it very rarely evokes that same Doom feeling and ends up feeling like a fucked up flipper baby concoction of several other boomer shooters while never really outdoing anything that these shooters accomplish in their own franchises. First and foremost, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, or lack thereof. There is a disturbing lack of Mick Gordon adjacent bangers because of course there is. Bethesda's absolute favorite pastime is looking a gift horse directly in the mouth. While I understand the overall situation to be more of a column A meets column B type affair, you won't catch me playing defense for the corpos anytime soon. They fucked Mick Gordon over, and that's about where I stand on it, and it has come back to bite them in the ass more than they initially thought. I never actually got around to playing the Doom Eternal DLC, so I wasn't really in the know on how they would eventually end up approaching the OST after the fact, but my god, this is leagues below the unstoppable, timeless classics that Mick had been spewing out with every iteration of the title. Like much of the game, the music isn't bad per se, just there, I guess. It serves its purpose, and that's about it. Throughout my playthroughs, the game's horrible mixing did nothing to help the situation, as the combination of the game's sound effects and the soundtrack morph into this pastiche of warbling bullets and slow, drudgy guitar grips that just did not hit to the same degree. Mick Gordon just fucking had it, man. Every song he brought to the table truly made you feel like you were embracing the unadulterated swagger of a Doomslayer. The hard-hitting rhythms and synthesized beats he'd cook up inspired this immense feedback loop with the gameplay. As far as I'm concerned, the lightning-quick pace of the previous 2 entries went hand-in-hand with the diabolical tracks he would lay down. Without it, the gameplay just ends up feeling hollow by comparison. But even if the music is gone, they at least kept the stellar gameplay design in place, right? Nah, not really. See, like I said before, id tried to go back to the drawing board and do something new with the formula, which I think, in hindsight, did not work out in their favor. Instead of expanding upon what already works, they brought everything back down to its base and, decided, instead of just going with the high-flying berserker on 2 legs, you feel more like a tank, which you would think would help to enhance the brutality and visceral nature of Doomslayer's combat, but it largely amounts to them cutting off my boy's feet and sending him into a swarm of demons just to see what happens. I think anyone who plays this game will feel the same way. Doom Guy just feels worse to play. Sure, the sprint helps a bit and is clearly balanced around giving Doom Guy some of that movement back, but it pales in comparison to Doom Eternal's dashes and environmental setups, like the bars he could use to leap from place to place. It honestly feels like throughout both of my playthroughs, I was mucking my way through a field of molasses. Everything is just so much slower in comparison, and it feels miserable to play. The movement changes bleed directly into the gunplay and enemy encounter design. Instead of the smaller, more contained arenas of previous titles, Dark Ages adopts a large-scale, almost Halo-like approach to its combat. Very rarely will you find yourself in the same monster closet scenarios that defined Doom for the past decades, because now most combat encounters play out in these huge swaths of land with scant few pieces of cover, forcing your player into utilizing the only real defensive option available in their shield. And the shield fucking rips, don't get it twisted. I just wish that it wasn't the only thing driving the entirety of the core combat loop. Like, to be honest, I really gotta disagree with Gene Park here. This does not feel like Devil May Cry meets Doom. If anything, Eternal had more of that vibe going on. Most encounters can be essentially boiled down to mindlessly strafing back and forth while you occasionally parry projectiles at enemy melee. That's about it. And here is where you really feel the lack of speed. Man, you'd have thought they would have traded in the fast-paced nature and at the very least made the combat feel more impactful, but Dark Ages is home to some of the worst-feeling weapons in the franchise by far. Some of the weapons are pretty rad, like the Shredder, which takes skulls from the Skull Throne and throws them into a weapon that works great against the huge swarms of enemies you're liable to face. And the Super Shotgun, thank God, still fucks pretty hard. But other than that, most of the weapons are largely the same affair, but just don't carry the same kind of heft that previous entries' weapons did, and it's hard to pinpoint the reason as to why that is. I think what it comes down to is this huge feeling of disconnection when I'm playing the Dark Ages. The amount of fodder on screen at one time makes every encounter feel less like its own unique combat puzzle and more like a straight-up MMO dungeon encounter. I'm slicing through literal trash mobs on the way to fight the bigger bosses, only for those encounters to feel pretty lifeless as well. It also doesn't help that they straight-up shifted or removed prior gameplay elements to serve this new loop either. Glory kills were easily some of my favorite mechanics in the reboot franchise. I get it, not everyone is a fan of being locked into a can animation for a small period of time, but it was clear that the game was balanced around it. It gave the player a small little break from the insane pace of every enemy encounter and allowed them to readjust and jump towards the next enemy. And while they're not entirely gone here, you can still engage in a few glory kills by jumping and pressing the melee button, there are far fewer instances of them, which feeds back into this whole disconnect I'm complaining about. The idea that I, as the fucking Doomslayer, am playing a game of keep away when I really want to Hulk out and smash is fucking insane to me. But that's what this is. The Dark Ages combat loop is far more passive by nature, and I kind of despise that. You would think that the added emphasis on the melee combat would at the very least help, but no. That feels about as dull and lifeless as anything else does here. Anytime a glory kill happens, I'm just constantly wishing it and the chainsaw were back instead of this miserable fucking flail shit. And my word, dude, don't even get me started on the gimmick levels. Look, we all wanted to embrace the glory of hopping into a large-scale mech and ripping the icon of sin from limb to limb. I feel you, and for the most part, this game does a decent enough job of selling that power fantasy. It's not as in your face as I'd like it to be, but the mech levels work for the most part. The dragon levels, on the other hand, are easily some of the worst I've ever played. It kind of starts off okay, right? Like, you're flying around, shooting at stuff, it kind of feels like Panzer Dragoon, I'm loving it, and then you get to the main meat of the combat. Instead of them actively taking advantage of the fact that you're on top of fucking fire-breathing Drake, they do the same thing they did with all the other gameplay and slow it the fuck down. You physically stop moving your dragon and wait in place just so you can try and get a perfect dodge to increase your firepower to take down whatever turret is in your way. When they try to spice it up when you encounter the Titan-class demons, but there's only so many times I can see the same animation done over and over and over again before it gets tiresome. Which is kind of a funny thought when you think about the fact that I just talked about the glory kills and really liking them, but there's a difference between the, like, you know, lightning fast kind of break an arm type shit and this really overly elongated breathing into their mouth for an extended period of time. You know what I mean? Oh, and whatever the fuck happened to the rule of three, man, I just honestly wish developers would go back to that because, my god, the pacing in this game's missions are dog shit because of that. There's one mission in particular that took me like over an hour because a lot of it is in this huge explorable area where you're supposed to take down 5 separate fucking gore nests, each spread miles away from each other, and not a scant one of the encounters you get into are fun. Hell, they even introduced easily one of the worst kinds of encounters where you have to kill enough demons to allow yourself the ability to take down the big bad of the area. It's fucking boomer shooter busy work is what it is, and it needs to fuck off in the direction from whence it came. You might be wondering why I haven't said a single thing about the storyline. So anyways, alright, fine. I think the insane emphasis on the story this time around is a huge mistake. If anything, this 100% proves that prequels are largely inconsequential affairs that could ultimately make the rest of the story worse off, and Dark Ages is a fantastic example of that. I could give a single solitary fuck about the plight of these walking flesh bags. I don't know what's happening half the time, and I genuinely gave it the good old college try on my second go-around. I even ended up spoiling myself when trying to watch the final cutscenes to see if anything cool happens, and no, it's just more of the same melodramatic, gruff, medieval horse shit that I hate. I could not tell you a single character's name. I couldn't even tell you why any of this is happening. Doom Guy isn't even the main character for the first 5 hours of this fucking thing. Why do I care about anyone but Doom Guy? Everyone else is literally saying the same thing. Where is Doom Guy? One of the coolest parts about the Doom reboots was the amount of personality Doom Guy was able to convey while simultaneously saying nothing. He wasn't just this huge, angry, gruff soldier type. He held genuine grievances with the powers that be that led to the summoning of demons in each location. He didn't take anyone's shit, and he was a force of nature to be reckoned with. And the best part is that most of the time, you're experiencing these entirely from his perspective. It made him badass. It made you feel badass. I mean, what the fuck is even happening here? I'm gonna ask Calibur to play a cutscene in here, like full here, and you tell me if any of this is even remotely interesting.
Sire, the demons are now targeting the Sentinel's energy relay. It powers their transdimensional barrier. Yes? It is an energy field which prevents the demons from opening a portal into this world. It doesn't work. What you see now is a result of Sentinel civilians falling under the influence of demons and opening portals for them. A mere leak in the dam, sir. If the barrier were to break,
Slayer vitals increasing. Slayer prepped for launch.
It's remarkable how he can survive the power surge.
Yes. We purify his mind and leave only his hatred for the demons.
But his resistance to the Tether's influence is increasing.
A request to the Creed for additional energy reserves has already been made.
launch the Slayer immediately.
Doom Guy was great because of the legends you heard about him. You didn't need to see what he did to believe what he was capable of, because he would just show you can do it again. His quiet, reserved anger that came flooding out in waves when dispatching of demons was palpable, and I loved it. You can't shoot a hole into Mars? Fuck you. I'm gonna, and you literally can't stop me. Meanwhile, Dark Age's Doom Guy is effectively relegated to the role of a corporate alien cuckazoid as he remains tethered to some ancient alien bullshittery. I don't know. I don't care. It sucks, and there's just so fucking much of it. Why is there so much of it? Why are these cutscenes so long? These don't need to be here. This story doesn't need to be here. This game doesn't need to exist. All right, that's a bit hyperbolic, but I think you get where I'm coming from. The Dark Ages is a huge step backwards for the franchise, and while fun can be had with it, it largely pales in comparison to its predecessors, and if anything, it's got me wanting to go back and give Doom Eternal another playthrough. If you're curious, go ahead and pick it up on Games Pass to give this a shot, but otherwise, man, just fucking steer clear of this altogether. There's better games on the horizon. Anyways, hey, if you liked what you saw, I promise I will have a more positive video coming sometime soon. I keep saying that, and it keeps not being the case. I promise there will be some form of positivity in this channel at some point. I swear to God. Anyway, shout out to Calibur for editing this and just being the all-around cool guy that he is. He made an amazing video, which I also linked to in the description channel here, which is a DMC review. DMC Dante, not, you know, the traditional Devil May Cry. That's really fun. I really like it a lot. So if you guys want to see more of Mr. Calibur's work, please go over there. He's got an amazing channel, and he's doing a lot better than I am right now, which, fuck you, guy. But anyways, thanks so much, brother. I will check you guys later. Have a good one.